Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for a model, build and tactics review of the Legio Custodes Tribune Ixion Hale. So here we have it, a review of one of the hardest to get hold of and most expensive miniatures currently in Forge World's line. Ixion Hale is a Warhammer World and event only exclusive model from Forge World for the Horus Heresy range. He costs £45. He's not sold as such, but he is in effect a member of the Horus Heresy character series range. What we're going to do in this review, well, it's going to be a long review because there's a lot to cover here. I'm going to do the usual approach. I'm going to look at the model, I'm going to talk about the miniature, it's a beautiful model, and talk about the build. I'm going to do some size comparisons as normal. I'll then talk about the rules and the tactics, looking at this guy as a shield captain and also as a tribune as well. And then finally, I'm going to finish up by addressing a question that was posed in the comments recently around the model price. And I'm also going to pull in discussion around the two new Primaris plastic Space Marine character models, the Captain and the Librarian in Mark X armour, to sort of address it at one point because it actually all fits together rather neatly. Anyway, let's have a look at the model first because it is a beauty. It really is. If you've not already watched it, I've done an unboxing video of this guy and I've also done a how-to build video of it. I mean, gosh, it is an absolutely stunning model. This is a first foot custodian that Forge World produced, and the detail is absolutely stunning. I mean, the original plastic custodians had good detail, but going to the resin medium, well, you know, you just can't beat it, can you? It's got all the common design cues that we've seen on custodians before, so such as the power pack in the custodian armour, and then he's got this distinct iron halo. He's carrying his helmet with this additional ornamentation to what normal custodians have. He's armed with this very impressive looking axe weapon, and this is a Paragon spear, like a double-handed axe with a assault bolter, or a Paragon assault bolter, as we'll come to find out, mounted in the head. Yeah, a great looking model, and then he's also mounted on this sort of plinth. He's mounted on this sort of small bit of terrain. He's on a 40mm base, as if he's walking down this staircase. And you've got this, well, it's a damaged staircase. Perhaps we might imagine this is somewhere on Tisca. He's got a Misericord power knife on his belt. He's got this goatee style beard, which is very distinct. I said Games Workshop nicked this face style off him for the new librarian model. Actually, it turns out, a mate of mine mentioned to me that Forge World had nicked this goatee beard off an earlier librarian model. It's an Advantage Games Workshop on the goatee theft competition. You can see it's a stunning looking model. The sculptor's done a brilliant job with his cape, and in particular I just love how this has been sculpted hanging off the rear armour. That just looks very, very well done. That's really cool. Even by Forge World standards, I have to admit that this model does impress. A massive, great bas-relief eagle on one of his pauldrons, and then this badge of a custodian guard, or symbol of a custodian guard, on his other. Right, building. This is a multi-part kit. It was dead easy to build, very straightforward, went together well. As always, with any finely detailed Forge World model, make sure you check everything's cast properly, because it would only take some slight mould displacements to damage some details here. So if you do buy this, make sure you check it. I had a little bit of mould slippage on the sprue with the knife and the head. I managed to clean it up. It was right on the borderline of if it was fixable, but I did manage to sort that out, so that worked out okay. The only real cleanup besides that mould slip, there's a fair bit of cleanup required on this axe, and this is something that I've seen commonly on Forge World large power axes, who seem to need quite a lot of cleanup. I've had it with Tech Marines, I've had it with Myrmidons, loads of things. It's a common thing. But apart from that, it all went together very well. I pinned the wrist for extra strength. I mean, you've got the contact point on the base as well, but I always think better be safe than sorry with these things. The only other thing building wise I did was I heated up and repositioned this part of the cape, and you can see how it's sort of flowing down there. As it comes, it's sort of bent up, and it just looks unnatural, and it looks like it has too much movement in it for his pose. So I bent that into that position. I felt it looked like the material was hanging more realistically than as it is cast. So that is a small aesthetic change I made to this miniature. And nice to see that, you know, in spite of his awesome combat prowess, he still has his equipment pouches as well. So yeah, a nice little touch of realism there from the sculptor. Do some size comparisons. So let's start off with a normal human in the form of a Solar Auxiliary Las Rifle Trooper. Ixion Hale is stood upright, so he's an absolute giant. I mean, this guy stood fairly upright, but yeah, he would simply towers over normal humans. And bulk-wise, he's absolutely colossal as well. So yes, tiny human. Let's now compare against a normal Astartes. Here we have a Iron Hands medic in Mark II with a Mark III helmet, bit of a mix of armor marks, and he's still towering. He's got, yeah, a good head, nearly a good head on this Marine. Oops, he's a big fella, and obviously a lot more bulk to him. So sticking with the increase in size, let's compare him against one of his comrades. So here we have a Sagittarium Guard, and yeah, pretty much the same height. Yeah, I mean the Sagittarium Guard isn't stood quite as upright, so yeah, same height. And it's nice to see a consistency of proportions and sizes. Sticking in the Heresy, let's bring on a representative of the Omnissiah, and as we're talking big, I've got a big guy. Here we've got a Myrmidon Destructor armed with a Volkite Culverin and a Power Fist. And yeah, I kind of brought this guy on to get someone about the same, if not bigger, size-wise. And you can see actually the Myrmidon is bigger than Ixion Hale. But yeah, you have to go to a really extreme example like that to get someone bigger than Hale. And of course, the Myrmidons are highly altered humans, well, barely human at all now, as is the fashion at the moment. And this is perhaps a bit of a non-comparison, although you can, I think you could use Ixion Hale in 40k. Let's do a comparison against one of the new Primaris Space Marines. This is from the Dark Imperium box set. As he compared to one of the Guillimen, he's a lot bigger. Yeah, he makes the Guillimen look quite small. Well, yeah, no, the Guillimen don't look that big compared to him. He's got a good half head, maybe a bit more on them, and he's got a lot more bulk in his custodian armour. But yeah, don't forget, he only takes 2 transport spaces. That's the size comparisons. You can go join his companions over there. It's good. And we'll take these guys all away, and then we'll talk tactics and rules. There's quite a lot to talk about here with this guy, because there's quite a lot of different ways you can configure him. There are no rules as a character for Ixion Hale at the moment that I've seen published anywhere. However, the Legio Custodes Shield Captain Tribune option is a very special character, so you can argue, why do you need separate special character rules for such a potent miniature? I don't know. Maybe we'll get one later, but you know, you go any better than the Tribune, and arguably the Tribune already exceeds Constantine Valdor in certain respects. My rules reference is the Horus Heresy Book 7 Inferno and the Talons of the Emperor Army List. This, of course, is 7th edition rule set I'm reviewing. Legio Custodes Shield Captain is 190 points. He's weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 5, strength and toughness are 5, wounds are 4, initiative is 6, attacks are 5, leadership is 10, and a saving throw of 2+. He's an infantry character. He has the following war gear: Guardian Spear, Close Combat Weapon, Iron Halo, Plasma and Crack Grenades, and Custodes Armour. He has the following special rules: Legio Custodes, Bulky, Crusader, Counterattack, Precision Strikes, Precision Shots, and he is an independent character. He's a very potent hero indeed, and he has typically high combat stats of a custodian, and you know, turned up to kind of like a major hero level. A Tribune is only available to a custodian force of 2,000 points or greater. It costs 25 points to turn the Shield Captain into a Tribune, so that increases the base points to 215 points. For that, you gain Fearless and Eternal Warrior. If you've got 2,000 point force and you're going to have a Shield Captain, it's an absolute no-brainer to pay the 25 to get in Tribune just for Eternal Warrior. And Fearless as well. Well, if he joins a unit, then that makes a unit Fearless as well. Excellent. You can select your Warlord trait as well as a Tribune. So although custodians don't get a specific table of traits, that does mean you can choose your trait, and that's a very powerful capability. And there's a whole host of Warlord traits that really work well for the custodian, so you know, blow yourself away there. However, he then has to be your Warlord unless you have Constantine Valdor Genitor Kroll, or the Emperor of Mankind also in the force, in which case they've got a separate tiering of warlord seniority. Right, so we've got our 215 points, so let's turn him into Ixion Hale. The first thing you need to do is buy the Paragon Spear for 20 points. So it's now 235 points. Paragon Spear is, shall we say, a little bit dangerous. It's a melee weapon, strength +1/+2, so +2 is on the turn he charges. Its AP is always 2, and it has the following rules of melee, lightning blows, murderous strike, and specialist weapon. Murderous strike, yeah, just fell people. Strength +2, I mean, on the turn he charges, he's hitting at strength 7, so that's pretty deadly in my book. And otherwise striking at strength 6, well, not that much less deadly. And with 5 attacks base, 6 on the charge, he's got a pretty high chance of taking advantage of a lightning blow, which allows him to make an additional attack with his Paragon Spear for each 6 he rolls, although you can't generate attacks on attacks with that. It's also pretty shooty as well, has a range of 18 inches, strength 5 and AP 3 and assault 2, so almost as good as an Archaeotech pistol in a way, and in a way it's better as well. Longer range, more shots, a bit less strength, same AP. A very potent weapon indeed. That's 235 points. You kind of pretty much got Ixion Hale as he's presented, but on top of that you've got a load of options you would take. You could have melter bombs for 5, array strikes for 2 points, a teleportation transponder for 5 points, Archaeotech pistol for 20, a Presidium shield for 20, digital lasers for 10, and a cyber familiar for 10. The digital lasers and cyber familiar are a no-brainer. The digital lasers put his attack stat up to 6 base, 7 on the charge. The cyber familiar gives you a 3+ invulnerable save, so well worth taking. Once you've done that, well, you've got one of the deadliest melee characters in the entire of the Heresy. And there's only a handful of named characters who might stand any sort of chance against Ixion Hale in that configuration. Things like standard Praetors, I mean, if you can even say that, are just going to get completely wiped out by him. He'll take on some of the nasties on the side of Horus very effectively as well. It'd be interesting to see him duke it out with Samos. That would be an interesting fight indeed. I mean, clearly he's a very potent accompaniment to any of the Custodian melee units. Talking of tribunes, there is arguably, I guess, an even better way of configuring this guy. If you want probably the toughest character in the whole Heresy in terms of armour, you can swap his weapons around. And for this you need to take the Presidium shield at 20 and also take a Sentinel Warblade as well. So I hear you say, why would you bother doing that? Well, the reason you'll do that is you've just made your character almost unkillable, because the Presidium shield allows you to reroll any failed invulnerable save. That, coupled with the Cyber Familiar, gives him a 3+ invulnerable save that you can re-roll. That is better than his standard armour. And because in 7th edition FAQ, the defender can always choose the saving throw they make, you simply default your invulnerable save for every single saving throw you have to make. The chance of failing that save is only 1 in 9, so it's substantially better than his basic armour save of 2+, 1 in 6 fail chance. If you want to turn your Legio Custodes Tribune into someone who's absolutely unkillable at range or in close combat, you know, go for the Presidium Shield, Cyber Familiar and Sentinel Warblade option. Just a little thought there, and I'm not sure that Forge World actually realised the option that they'd handed out there, making such a strong saving throw available. Particularly to say you would never test on your basic armour save. I mean, why bother? You know, whether or not he accompanies Custodians or Sentinel Guard, the Heterion Guard, very, very deadly. And obviously with a guy like this, giving him the teleportation transponder to play peekaboo deep strikes is going to strike fear into hearts of your enemy, because very few people can resist this guy attacking them. Very potent warrior indeed. Like most things in the Custodian list, he is superlative, he is qualitatively better than just about anything else you can get in the Heresy. But that's what you get with the Custodians, isn't it? Now I'm going to do something a bit different to normal, and I'm going to talk about the price of this model, because it has received a lot of commentary because of how high it is. And I thought it'd be interesting just to share a few thoughts that I've had around the cost of Ixion Hale, the miniatures. He costs £45, and for a single miniature, that's clearly very expensive. If you look at other miniatures, perhaps. I mean, let's think about some we've looked at. So this medic here, in effect, costs about, what, £11 for a single miniature? He's 4 times the cost. Seriously? And then, if we take our Myrmidon that we looked at before, the Myrmidon is, in effect, I think about £13.30 a go. I think these are £40 for 3 these days. Ixion Hale is £45 for 1 miniature. I find it difficult to see any justifiable argument on the parts count front to say why Ixion Hale should be that much more expensive. I would allow them a bit more cost on the detail, perhaps. Maybe they've got a slower, more careful casting process to produce the character series models, but I still can't see why he's worth more than 3 times the cost of this Myrmidon. So yeah, he's overpriced, and when I did my analysis of Forge World price increases over the last 5 years, and I will leave a link to that in the description, one of the miniature types I called out as having excessively high price increases over the last couple of years were the character series models, and he very much fits into that category as well. Character series models have gone up in price, I think, from around £35 to now £45. So Ixion Hale compares to things such as our good old friend Nathaniel Garrow, the Knight Errant model, which costs £45. Comparing him to Garrow, Garrow comes with a much larger display base, but this guy's probably got a bigger part count, so part count does affect Forge World models. But still, whichever way you look at it, they're both overpriced at £45. There's no 2 ways about it. And the percentage price increases we've seen on these type of models is very significant over the last few years. The only reason I bought him, really, or what prompted me to buy him, was I kind of like got some prize money. So in effect, I'd covered a very substantial part of his cost. So from my personal purchase point of view, this guy ended up a lot cheaper. This is where we kind of like get into the, shall we say, the subjective bit of this assessment. So in any sort of quantitative rationalisation of his price, he's overpriced, there's no 2 ways about it. When you consider it from a qualitative perspective and a rarity perspective and a collection perspective and an investment perspective, I think it's not as simple. The fact of the matter is they're not going to make or sell that many of these miniatures. The very fact that you can only get this at maybe 10 events a year or by going to one location in the United Kingdom means it is extremely inaccessible to buy. So instantly this model has got a rarity value to it. Whatever happens to Forge World or Games Workshop over the next 10 or 20 years, this is always going to be a desirable collector's piece because it is simply so well sculpted, and my experience of collecting early Warhammer 40,000 models tells me the good models back then are now worth a lot of money today, and some of them are worth significantly more, very significantly more than you paid for them back then. So as a collector's item, I actually probably think the £45 isn't a bad investment. This is the sort of thing you could probably buy, build it, paint it, and even if you sold it on for 3/4 of the price you originally got it, it's still been worthwhile. I don't think that's the case. I think if I stuck this guy on eBay tomorrow, I think I would get more than I paid for it originally. It's a difficult one, this is, on the cost. It is overpriced compared to the rest of the range. However, the rarity does give a justification for spending that money on it. And as I say, it is going to be a good collector's piece. And I don't think it's going to lose value. So it's a bit of a quandary, that. And basically, I think from a cost point of view, you kind of have to think, if you're going to buy it, as long as you build it well and paint it at least reasonably well, you've got a valuable model that's always going to be good on the resale market. If you buy it, make a hash of building it and or painting it, then you're going to knock a lot of value off it. So, do bear that in mind, I would say. I've seen examples of this miniature that are absolutely stunningly painted, so I'm sure they command quite high prices. There's a saying about rare things: diamonds have no price apart from that which is attached to them. And that, in the case of Ixion Hale, I think rings true. I suppose there's one other comparison I'd like to make, and Games Workshop has just announced the price of the 2 new Primaris Space Marine character models. So this is the Captain in Mark X armour and the Librarian in Mark X armour. Now, those models cost £22.50 each, or £45 for the pair. Now, Here we come back to the Forge World and the rarity point. If I were kind of looking relatively at the price, which would I buy, those two or this guy? Well, I wouldn't bother with those two at all. I would buy Ixion Hale every day if I could, because for two reasons. He's a much nicer model, even though there's only one of him. And in 5-10 years' time, as a collector's piece, believe me, this guy is going to be worth a lot more. Those two are going to lose a lot of value. Unless you paint them up exceptionally well and model them very well, they will lose value. I guess that's another thought, isn't it? I don't think those two new Space Marine characters are worth their price at all. Even though they cost the same as this guy, he is a much more sensible purchase than those two, just from a point of view thinking of it as a bit of an investment. Make of that what you will. Anyway, that's a lot of time spent talking about one model. Perhaps it's justified as a unique model. But I've got something a bit different to finish up with. A long-time subscriber and channel Leaky Cheese called Henry IX has very kindly sent me some pictures of his Ixion Hale model that he's painted up, and a number of other pictures of the custodian models he's been working on. Henry IX is a very talented painter, so I've put together a slideshow of these models at the end of the video, so please do stay and watch those, because as I was saying, you know, if you paint this model well, the value will increase substantially, and I think Henry IX's example is an excellent demonstration of that principle at work. Please do stay around to watch that slideshow. So other than that, I would just like to say thank you all very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.